been a long time since I've done one of these. So, I just finished The Planet of Spiders, which is the season finale of Doctor Who. This is when the third Doctor, John Pertwee, regenerates into Tom Baker. So I'm here today to reminisce on John Pertwee, kind of an ode to him. I have one with Patrick somewhere that I really need to pull up and go over, and I can't remember where I lost it, but here is the one for looking back on John Pertwee. The last time I did one of these, I believe it was in January, maybe February, and now it's May, and yes, it took me that long to get through John. There were a few changes with this one that definitely changed with the first one, and the second one especially. But, oh my goodness, where do I begin? The first thing I have to notice, that I have to state, is the frequency of missed episodes stopped. Just to recap, in case you missed the first few episodes, there was a program in place on BBC where when they finished filming, they would wipe. It's called wiping. They would wipe or erase the video after using it, and then they would just reuse the tape. They did this through most of the 60s, and they stopped doing it around the 70s. Yeah, early 70s. So for almost a decade, they wiped all the Doctor Who's. So a good chunk of the first Doctor is missing, including his regeneration. So when you see the first Doctor regenerate, it's all in stills because you don't even get to see the Doctor regenerate. And the first episode with Patrick, with Doctor 2 coming on, you don't quite see what's going on there again because they wiped the first episode with Patrick's performance. The second Doctor had such an impact on me. I absolutely adore Patrick. He instantly was my favorite Doctor. I absolutely adored Patrick. And Patrick went on to, he had such a strong presence with the character that he went on to shape a lot of what you would see later on. The bow tie the Doctors wear is because of Patrick. The kind of something not quite working right, a little bit of quirkiness, that eccentricity that you see, that's due to Patrick. The sonic screwdriver came from Patrick, which actually goes back to the first Doctor. The first Doctor had a ring. There's no real explanation where this ring came from, but you see him twice, I think, use the ring to magnetically do a few things. In one case, he unlocks the TARDIS with the ring. In another, and this is funny, they don't quite know what they're going to do with the sonic screwdriver yet. They haven't quite identified it, but they want to do something special with it. So you see the ring work like the sonic screwdriver, but it's definitely out there. It's not anything the screwdriver can actually do. It's not magnetically pulsed or anything. And he does something like register a spark or something out of the ring. When Patrick is regenerated, the very first thing he does, aside from playing his awesome flute and then ransacking his diary and trying to figure out who and what he is, he picks up the ring. Dr. One's ring, and it falls off his hand. That's what it was. He stands up and it falls off his hand, and then he picks it up. And about an episode or two later, you see him pull out the sonic screwdriver, and it's acting the exact same way as the ring. So the sonic screwdriver actually came from the first Doctor's ring, and because it didn't fit Doctor 2, he turned it into the sonic screwdriver. And that was the start of it. So there's a lot of Doctor Who tidbits that we very easily can credit to Doctor 2, played by Patrick Troughton. Phenomenal man. So when Doctor 3 came in, it was just amazing. My first impression of Doctor 3 was I was so absolutely infatuated. I'm going to call myself out on it. I was absolutely infatuated with Patrick that I didn't care about anyone else. I'm definitely going to go through all the Doctors. I'm not going to ever snub a Doctor because someone was so awesome I just can't imagine going on. That's not going to be me. So, and if I get to a bad Doctor, I'm going to just sit through it and tough it out. So if I can tough out all the missing episodes and some of the recons that they did, I can tough out a bad doctor. So I'm sitting through Doctor 3, and I already have made up my mind that I don't like him for the simple fact that it's not Patrick, and I'm going, and I spent many a day crying because it wasn't Patrick and I missed him so much. And it took me, I'm going to be very honest with you, because of that I missed out on a lot with John. It took me a long time to really warm up to him, which is unfortunate because I didn't appreciate what he was. And then I got to this one thing. It was actually very frequent, or very recent. It was actually on his, the current companion I'm on now is Mary Jane Smith. And this is the other thing. I think it was Patrick who came up with a pseudo name, John Smith. And somebody had asked Patrick what his name was, and he gave the name John Smith. I can't remember if it was Patrick or if it was John Pertwee, but either way, between Doctors 2 or 3, the name John Smith works its way into the script, and apparently it stays. I was watching David Tennant, I don't like Pass, I don't like Pass, and it's the only section from David Tennant that I've ever seen. I think 1 or 2, but I got to see the I Don't Like Pass skit by David Tennant, and I was rewatching it the other day because I don't like Pass, and it just cracks me up. And there was this line that David delivers in the middle of his speech on not liking pears, and he says, "Now I'm going to resume the identity of John Smith, but John Smith is just a character I made up." And I went, oh my God, they're still using it! John Smith is all the way back from the 60s when Doctor 2 or Doctor 3 invented the name to kind of cover the lack of a name. And just for the record, Doctor Who's name is not Doctor Who. It is the Doctor or nothing. We don't know his name. And I hear people calling him Doctor Who, like who is his last name. That's not true. His name is the Doctor or John Smith. He actually doesn't have a name. So that's a beef I've already developed. So I get to this one part with Doctor Who and with the fourth Doctor, with John Pertwee. And he's with Sarah Jane Smith, and it's the very first time they, not regenerate. There's a bit of a backstory here. So Doctor 2 gets himself exiled because he was rather naughty, quote unquote. He was rather naughty, and he steals the TARDIS, and the Time Lords catch up to him. It's a fascinating arc. There's like a massive 2 arcs where he's just trying to outrun the Time Lords. That's all it is. It's him trying to outrun the Time Lords. So Patrick does this 2 episodes skipping with the TARDIS, and the Time Lords start to play with him, because ultimately the Time Lords, not the TARDIS or Patrick, has control over time. The Time Lords do. So they start messing with him and putting him where they want to put him, and he'll show up and they'll be there like, hello, we're here, and then he'll be like, crap, and he jumps back in the TARDIS and takes off again, and they just play with the TARDIS. It's great. So after about 2 episodes, and I do mean it, 2 episodes of the Time Lords chasing Doctor Who, they finally just say, all right, we're done with this, and he lands on the planet. So you actually get to Doctor Who's home planet, and if you're wanting to know what this is the last arc. I'll post the title of it. It's a phenomenal arc from the second Doctor. And it's arcs like this where I just step back and go, how can anyone not start at the beginning? It was a phenomenal arc. There were 2 of them that were just, actually I think this is the one. It was just amazing time paradox. It was beautifully done. And he stands trial in front of the Time Lords over what he's done. And then you find out all the things that Doctor Who has done up to this point. And they punish him by exiling him to Earth. And to take care of his image, they start regenerating a new face for him because he lives forever, and that's something that can't be done with on Earth. So to kind of help him with his secret identity, they give him a new face every now and then. So they banish him. So you see, it's the one Doctor where you're not actually with. Now, mind you, I'm saying this, only seeing 3 Doctors generate, so. You physically don't see him generate. You see Patrick kind of phase off, he's spinning around, and then you see the TARDIS. The TARDIS opens, and John Pertwee falls out. And then he wakes up, and one of the things that you see right away, and this is something I love already, it's one of my favorite things, is Doctor 2 and Doctor 3 judge their face. So you get to see Dr. Two's impression of John Pertwee's face when he regenerates as the third Doctor. And you get to see Dr. Three's impression of Tom Baker's face as Dr. Four. So this is like a thing. So that's already caught on. Now, you don't get to see that with Doctor Two. When Patrick regenerates, that's cut out. Yeah, when Patrick regenerates, it's the first time they realize, okay, we want to regenerate. So there's a lot of new things that happened with Patrick that didn't happen with anybody else because they were new to it. I think when they started the show, I'm really certain on this, and I need to research it to see if this is true or not. And if you have the answer, I'd love to know it. I think when they started writing Doctor Who, they had no plans to regenerate the Doctor. And then they got to a point where maybe William Hartnell, he said, you know what, I want to leave the show, or something happened, and they said, okay, we need to bring in a new Doctor because ratings are high. Why would we end this? This is great. We just need to change out the actors. How are we going to change out the actors? And I think that's how they came up with the regeneration. So when they regenerated, they brought in Patrick, and they had no... They were kind of on the not sure how to do it exactly, because the first time they regenerate, they blamed it on a TARDIS. It was just a feature that the TARDIS put in together. But by the fourth Doctor, but John Pertwee makes his exit, and Tom Baker enters the Sing, and Sarah Jane provides the explanation that, or the Doctor does, that when the Doctor's body, I remember now, it was John Pertwee, almost the season finale of season 11, he explains that when the Doctor's body wears out, it gets regenerated to explain for his immortality. So, near the very end, Sarah Jane, they go, she's a Snoopy reporter, and she sneaks into the TARDIS, and the TARDIS takes them back to medieval, right after the Battle of Hastings, right around there, around 1200 medieval England, around the Crusade time. And she goes through the whole thing, refusing to believe that she's, traveled through time, that she was not in a time machine. So she gets to this point where she and the Doctor are conversing, and he was just so sweet. He very affectionately just touches her face, and you can tell, this is really, like, I saw this and I just went, oh my God, I love John's character. Absolutely love the way he portrayed him. You start to see the loneliness that the Doctor really starts to undertake. You start to really see this side of the Doctor where he starts to attach himself and grows very fond of his companions. Not romantically, but definitely, like, he knows. Yeah, and you saw this with John Pertwee. Only John so far. You didn't see this with William. It was kind of mentioned with William Hartnell in the first season, but it was like hinted at. There was one foreshadowing. It was dropped and never mentioned again. And Patrick didn't mention anything about it. But when we get to, or did we? There was one companion where he was companionless, and I think it was with William, the first Doctor, where he was companionless, and you see that I'm going to be alone. And he was kind of depressed about it. And then he's given the option to have companions, and he jumps on it like, yes, yes, give me companions. But then you get to this particular Doctor, and by then, John has the attitude of, I'm going to be alone, and that's just something I need to accept. So, and this is really where the different, you can start to see, and this is beautiful, because with Doctor 1 and Doctor 2, you've got this, okay, William Hartnell makes the Sing with very, you're not quite sure who or what the Doctor is. You've got this, okay, so there's William Hartnell. And you go through it, and okay, and you think, okay, so he's a crotchety old man. He's a curmudgeon. He's a curmudgeon. And then you find out, really, there's no other word to describe William Hartnell, because he really, really wears that role well. And at the end, once he kind of warms up to his companion, he's no longer the curmudgeon, but he still kind of wears it on his, on the exterior. And then you bring in Patrick. Now, Patrick was labeled as the clown, which really, really aggravates me, because it's contributed to his clothes. When Patrick regenerates, so that Patrick comes into the Sing, he's wearing William's clothes, which they do with all the Doctors. But if you actually see William Hartnell standing next to Patrick, Patrick is a very short man. So he's wearing William's clothing, and the clothing does not fit him. William never changes. Or I'm sorry, Patrick never changes. And that's really what you're seeing is after William regenerates into Patrick, Patrick is still wearing William's clothes, which are too big. And he doesn't change out of them. He still wears his clothes. And to me, that was very logical. Could he have changed? Yeah, but it seemed like it was more of a, why bother? This is comfortable, and I have better things to do than worry about my wardrobe, which is actually contradicting to the fourth Doctor. I'm not even going to get into what Tom Baker does with his wardrobe. But Patrick never changes his wardrobe, which is why you see him wearing these ultimately large clothing on him. That he literally is labeled a buffoon or a clown. And I think after seeing William, and this is especially true, if we were given Tom Baker after seeing William Hartnell, we would have looked at that and gone, oh, Tom Baker's a clown. It's because it was Patrick, I think, that persona after seeing William, that we labeled him a clown. And I think he only got that rap because we just got done with William, who looked like a curmudgeon, who acted like the curmudgeon. So we went from curmudgeon to Doctor 2, who very much reminds me of Dr. 4 and Dr. Matt Smith. Very, very much. Those three have a lot in common. So when you go from this curmudgeon to either one of those three personalities, which is pretty much the same personality, you're going to see that it's going to come off as being a clown. Dr. 3 came in with an absolute, he looked wise, he acted wise, he had a sophistication about him, but he also was spry, and he wasn't, I loved him. And it wasn't, like I said, I didn't notice until nearly the end of it was probably season 10 of season, he left in season 11, so it was probably season 9, season 10, that I really started to appreciate Jon Pertwee. So, and it's, now you've got the full span of, okay, so I've got a curmudgeon, now I've got this Monty Python, I'm just Monty Python-like character, and then you've got this kind of combination of the two. He's definitely got William's wit, but he does bring a class and sophistication to the group. And I watched the three Doctors. You had Patrick back with William Hartnell. I was very upset they didn't actually bring William on the set. But basically, John and Patrick had to work together. Doctors 2 and 3 had to work together. And watching the playoff of them trying to explain to everybody that it's the same person. Even though they look different, it's the same person, and they're getting into arguments with himself. So it was really, that was definitely, the three Doctors was phenomenal to watch. It was a wonderful experience. And as I said, I was really hoping for more William Hartnell in the show, which broke my heart, but okay. So after that, after the three Doctors, now I'm into Tom Baker. And I am definitely missing Jon Pertwee. He had an absolute delightful charm that just, I miss him. I really miss him already. He had a sensuality to him that really I'm already missing. So Tom Baker makes the saying, and he is absolutely back to the second Doctor's personality. He reminds me, I'm going to post it, but I saw a face. I'm checking for my phone because I actually Instagrammed it, because it just I was going through I was Googling pictures for what's his name, for Tom Baker, to see who was up next and what he looked like, and I got this picture of this I don't know what to call it. Here it is. Let me see here. I saw this face, and I just instantly, I loved him. That's really, there it is. So this is the picture I saw. That really, let me see, wait for the phone to, let me see if it's going to come in here. Oh, I cannot get this to, there you go. There it is. So that's Tom Baker. I don't know if you can, but that's Tom Baker. And I'll post it on my site for better viewing. But the scarf, I don't know. It's just, he definitely was inspired off of what was happening, I think, in with Doctor Two, and I think he really took that and ran with it beautifully. And Tom Baker is the doctor who stays for 7 seasons. Of all the doctors, he's the one who stays the longest.